Welcome to the Abel Speaks podcast, where we speak to commonly asked questions by parents who have received a life-limiting diagnosis for their child. We're Daniel and Kelly Crawford, and we're glad that you've joined us. We are going to tackle a big question today that we couldn't hope to fully flesh out in, a less than 10-minute episode, but that we wanted to introduce early because it is an incredibly common question. It is this: how did you guys, and how should I, process and approach medical interventions for my child? And so I would just slap the big disclaimer at the top to say that we're not, nor do we pretend to be or aspire to be doctors or medical providers. And so we are just parents who found ourselves in this place and had to process these things, and have had the honor of walking alongside over 100 other parents who have done the same thing. And with that, Kelly, would you just want to share, what we've seen, just our experience, but really in light of that, as an organization, how does Abel Speaks approach this loaded conversation around medical interventions?
Yeah, so this is the most common question that we get when we first meet with families is, how in the world do I make these decisions for my child? I feel so ill-equipped. And so as an organization, we really try to take a non-biased approach to the question about medical interventions. And the reason for that is because we believe that the Lord has entrusted every baby to specific parents, and that He will equip those parents to make the best right decision for their child. And that will probably look different than it does for every other family. And that has held true with all of the families that we've gotten to walk with. And every family makes a little bit different choices because their baby's needs are different. We also just want in this conversation to acknowledge, like Daniel said, that this is a really loaded conversation, and people have a lot of emotions and feelings surrounding this question about medical interventions and what do I do and what do I not do. And so there is, this spectrum of choices where we choose to do no interventions, or we choose to do every intervention possible that's offered for our baby. Then there's all the options in between. And so we've seen families take every route imaginable, and that was good and right for their family. With that being said, Daniel, do you want to kind of share a little bit about what we did and how we processed some of these decisions when we had Abel?
Yeah. And I think in light of what you just said, it's less of I don't think it would be most helpful to lay out, here's exactly what we did and it's exactly what you should do. But I think just broadly speaking, decision by decision, I'll use the illustration of a stoplight, and the two of us, red, yellow, green. And we would just, as we began to educate ourselves about what the potential different scenarios that could arise were, what the different responses medically could be in those situations, we just wanted to flesh those out. And again, see our last episode, we knew that ultimately we weren't in control, and that we wouldn't have a lot of the information before the time came for Abel to be born, but it was still a helpful process to chat through and process together. And so something might come up like, hey, if he is born and he needs oxygen, do you want to administer oxygen? And so we'd look at each other, hey, where are you on that? Red, yellow, green. And then sometimes you land in the same place. Sometimes you land in different places. Sometimes one or both parents are yellow light, which is basically, I don't know which way I want to go there. And so that could be the challenging scenarios. And again, we found that sometimes if the clarity doesn't come instantaneously, that in due time, one or both of those lights will turn a color. And so at that point, just step by step, to reaffirm what you had said, I do believe, and we experience personally, the Lord bring about a peace and a clarity and a conviction and assurance of how to best advocate for and care for our child, one decision at a time. And so where would you leave parents that are listening in, Kel, with, hey, we're right where in the thick of what you're describing. And so are there any more resources, any more tangible next steps that Abel Speaks would offer for us?
Yeah, we would love for any family listening to reach out to us so that we can better understand what you specifically want and desire for your child and your family. And then that helps us come up with a more specific plan for you. But in that, we really start with talking through quantity and quality of life and what that means. And we love to educate and equip families on all of their medical options and then help them navigate and determine what's best for their child. We talk through informed consent and how to advocate for that with your medical providers. We talk about individualized plan of care, how to advocate for that for your with your medical providers, as well as we have a set of questions that we give every family that they can take to their meetings with NICU or other care teams, and really just walk through those questions with the doctors, and just to make sure that you guys are on the same page and that they are willing and able to offer the services that you hope for your family.
And ultimately, as we've said, we hope that this podcast can serve as just a helpful supplement to any family listening in, but it's not intended to be a substitute for the more comprehensive care that we're able to provide when a family reaches out. And so if that's you, we would encourage you to take that next step and reach out to us at support@abelspeaks.org. And we would love to hop in the boat with you and share more in detail about what the journey looked like for us, what we've seen other families do, and hope that that will inform what you might do for your child and for your family. And so that wraps up our second episode of the Abel Speaks podcast. Keep tuning in, and we'll see you next time. Hey friends, thanks for listening in. We hope this content has been helpful. At Abel Speaks, we exist to support families who have chosen to carry a child with a life-limiting diagnosis, and we want you to know that the foundation of that support is rooted in relationships. And so, if you're a parent in this circumstance, then by all means continue listening in, but we'd really encourage you to reach out by sending an email to support@abelspeaks.org. Again, our heartfelt prayer is that this episode has served you in some way and that we might have the opportunity to serve you further in the future. The Abel Speaks podcast is produced by the team at Tarno & Company and mixed and edited by the team at Sound of a Rose.